Hello everybody and welcome back to Trek Culture's Ups and Downs. I am your slightly sunburned host, Sean Ferrick, and I am here to take you through this week's Ups and Downs. You know the drill by now. We are going to go through the episode and we're going to give everything that we liked an up and everything that we didn't like a down. And then we're going to stick around for Cetacean Ops, where we go through all of the Easter eggs and Mike McMahon, are you trying to kill us? With that in mind, I'm Sean Ferrick for Trek Culture, and here is the ups and downs for Star Trek Lower Decks Season 2, Episode 3, We'll Always Have Tom Paris. This is another good and fun episode, making sure that Season 2 of Lower Decks is as much fun as Season 1 was. One of the most just enjoyable recurring gags for the whole episode for me was, how the hell is Shax back? Now straight away, I'm giving this an up because I like that they don't really answer it. But they also kind of do. They answer it to the point where if you ask the question, your mind will be blown apart. Kind of like where we ask how Chris gets through all of these edits so quickly. Blown apart. It's good fun. It's both acknowledging the fact that yes, a bridge crew officer is back from the dead, but also, yeah, listen, don't worry about it. We're not gonna bog you down with all of the details. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed Rutherford's search for the truth, and also that little reveal that blows his absolute mind by the end of the episode that of course we don't get to learn about. Loved that entire storyline. I will revisit Shax in the Easter eggs, but for now, that's an up. Now, the second one is the fact that we have legacy Star Trek is back in this episode. Robert Duncan McNeill returns as Tom Paris. Now, this one was teased in the trailer with that wonderful talking plate, which makes sense if you're a Trekkie, makes you sound crazy if you're not a Trekkie, and frankly, makes you sound crazy if you're a Trekkie. He comes back onto the bridge full of confidence. Freeman is just like, ha ha ha, maybe don't send us to the Delta Quadrant. And you know what? Fair. But it's just fun seeing his interaction with Boimler in this episode as he fights his way through the Cerritos just to be recognized as a human. So all of the various Tom Paris cameos throughout the episode for me is another up. We knew it was coming, but I thoroughly enjoyed it as it did. Also, who doesn't love the fact that when they meet in the flesh, Paris tackles him to the ground screaming that he's a Kazon. Love it. And now kind of on that topic, Boimler struggles to be just recognised as existing this week. Now, this could be a bit of a spoiler as to something that maybe where the series is going. Maybe the other Boimler has no problem getting through doors, and this Boimler has a lot of problems getting through doors. Now, there's a lot of kind of blasé explanations to say that, oh, it's alright, we've just beefed up security, what with all of those pack leads getting on board, like all of the time. I really enjoyed his struggles, because Boimler being Boimler, he keeps his stiff upper lip about it all, in the screaming and crying way of stiff upper lip, of course. But he can't get through the doors. What does Boimler do? Starts crawling through the Jeffries troops. I really, really like it. For me, it's my third up of the episode. It's great to see Boimler back on the Cerritos. This is where he belongs. Sorry, Bradward, you were great on the Titan, but I think William Boimler is probably going to get on a little bit better. This week shows us a bit of a shake-up to the formula of Lower Decks in that it's Mariner and Tendi that get the main mission together. And you know what? It works. As I've lamented a couple of times, Tendi and Rutherford get a little bit of the short stick when it comes to Lower Decks. Like, what we see is great fun, but I've just been saying we don't see enough. Now, last week we got a bit more of Rutherford, which I was delighted about, and this week we get plenty of Tendi. We get reminded that her first name is Divana, and also somebody else who needed reminding was Beckett, who is, of course, Mariner. Their entire side storyline and their trip to Quaylor 2 and then to Starbase Earhart, oh, it's just so much fun. It's also a good exploration of the Orion stereotypes in Star Trek. Again, Tendi's trying her best to kind of smash these stereotypes away, whereas Mariner is very much living in the stereotype of that. For me, their storyline this week was an up. I really, really like them together. I think they were a great team, and I would love to see more Mariner and Tendi going forward in Lower Decks. Thanks to their storyline, we get a little bit more development on the Orions as a people, who, in a way, they're one of the oldest races in Star Trek and one of the least explored. Enterprise did a good job for kind of going back and showing that it was a matriarchal society, that the men were often under the thrall of the females. Of course, we had an Orion all the way back in the cage with Vina dancing for Captain Pike. Tendi has had to shoulder the burden of these stereotypes of the Orions for, well, the almost 60-year history of Star Trek. And again, with a few well-placed jokes, Lower Decks is doing a great job at kind of smashing those stereotypes. So for me, because I've enjoyed watching the Orions in all of their various different iterations, even the plasticky rubber ones from Discovery, that's an up from me. I like the continued exploration of the Orions. More, please. Give us more Tendi, give us more backstory. We knew Tendi was a badass, we knew Mariner was a badass, but did we know they listened to Klingon acid punk? Boom. That's an up. I've one down, and it's gonna sound nitpicky, but this is my list, I can do whatever I want. My down for the episode is that it was no stakes. Like, we knew about 5 minutes into the episode, Tiana has no interest in that scratching post. So that, for me, it's very nitpicky, but yeah, it was just like, because a bit like the jokes that have run through Lower Decks, sometimes they drag it out a tiny bit. That was my problem with the ransom joke in episode 1. So for me, it was just like, yeah, they smashed this post to bits. There's gonna be a twist, and it's gonna be a little bit disappointing. And it was, but I'm nitpicking, and Mike McMahon, I love you. Ladies and gentlemen, join me as we go to Citation Ops. I have given up any pretense of trying to learn these lists off. It's not as much as last week, but lads, Quailor 2 from Unification, shout out to Fairhaven from, of course, the one that resulted in the Tom Paris ban in Irish law. Salamander Paris, you had to mention it. There was no way you were getting through an episode with Tom Paris and you weren't mentioning Threshold. Voy era, which is a repeat of the joke of the TOS era, but hey, look, for me it works. Shax, Transporter Pattern Buffer, Restored Catra, Mirror Universe Switcheroo, the Borg rebuilt him, which is a nice little switch to that novel The Return by William Shatner, where the Borg brought him back because reasons. Future Son from an alternate timeline, that's Firstborn, TNG Season 7. We have a shout out to the Nexus. Maybe he was Genesis waved. Down on the Planet, which I thought in the trailer was going to be Free Cloud. Of course it isn't. Now we know it's Quailor 2. We have Quark's Bar. And just across from Quark's Bar, keeping that rivalry going all these years later, is Vic Fontaine's. We also have a billboard advertising Amory, who was the 4-armed keyboard player from Unification. Now, in the bar, we have a Benzite. We have grey uniforms in the bar. Now, jumping forward slightly, when Tom Paris plants Boimler to the ground, we see that those grey uniforms have the emblem on the boot as well. Good fun. Tapestry in general. Mariner ran over Worf's mechlith while posted on DS9. Mwah! Starbase Earhart. Now, this one has a couple of bits because this is the Starbase from the episode Tapestry. It is also the model of Starbase Earhart, which was used for the design for this episode, is a reuse of the model from, crossover alert, the 70s sci-fi flick Logan's Run, which is just trippy as balls if you're watching it recently. It's also seen in Star Trek V when Captain Kirk, get my ranks correct, Captain Kirk is talking to Admiral Bob, played by Harve Bennett. Now we have a little shout out to a legacy character. Mariner keeps calling Tendi, and is surprised when she hears the name Divana, thinking she just had one name, like Odo. When Boimler drops through the roof of the bridge, Paris tackles him to the ground, calling him a Kazon. Mariner and Tendi are on their way back to the Cerritos, and she goes, "Prepare for ramming speed!" Which, of course, we all know is from First Contact. The end of the episode, Mariner turns around to Boimler and goes, "Oh, did you get your bowl signed by Chakotay?" Nice. Now, this whole section itself is Shax fashion. We have Elementary Dear Shax. We have Terran Empire Shax. We have Borg Shax. We have Enterprise Era Shax. We have Dyson Sphere Shax. We have TOS Era Shax. Holy Mother of God, we have Neelix Shax. There's also a shout out in the background, "What's the deal with DePaul's haircut?" Yeah, I know, right? And someone goes, "It's always Christmas in the Nexus." I love it. And last but not least, the Orion buildings that Tendi and Mariner visit are, in our opinion, at least a visual callback to Star Trek Discovery Season 3 episode Scavengers, when Burnham and Georgiou go to find Book. That is everything for our list today, guys. Now, I am absolutely certain I have missed something, so please let us know in the comments below and don't be afraid to reach out. Remember, you can catch us on Twitter at Trek Culture. You can catch myself on all the socials at Sean Ferrick as well. Now, until next week, guys, look after yourself. Remember, if you're going to break that Warp 10 threshold, try keep your salamander juice just on standby. Remember, we'll always have Paris. You live long and prosper, and thanks very much for coming by.